All right, so Peter, what do you think then with regards to this? Should Boris butt out? Is Rishi Sunak right to ask for this thing to be ditched?
Well, Boris is an MP and is welcome to contribute, but the thing is, it's wrapped up in his own ambition, because think of other former Prime Ministers, John Major and Tony Blair, both played a huge role in the peace process in the 1990s. They don't want to be Prime Minister again, so when they speak, it's a degree of independence, but there's nothing in it for themselves. Whereas for Boris Johnson, it's only been a matter of months since he resigned over several scandals and with record personal low approval ratings. So the problem is it's all wrapped up in his own future career, and I worry slightly that these interventions, however perhaps well-intentioned, put his own politics before what's going on in Northern Ireland.
So, but if you look at it, though, isn't he right, though, to sort of intervene in this? Because ultimately, or to suggest that Rishi Sunak change his course of action. Otherwise, the European Court of Justice will be able to intervene. And that is the worry. Let's go to Belinda de Lucy. Belinda.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Nana. No, I'm very, very pleased that Boris has butted in, if you like. I mean, it's essential that we keep the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill as leverage. The Conservatives have made the mistake before of getting rid of No Deal, taking that off the table when we were in our negotiations, that left us open to having to obey the instructions of the EU. And I don't know, I'm very concerned that Rishi has delayed and put this Northern Ireland Protocol Bill on hold, because essentially all the bill is suggesting and ensuring is that foreign courts don't rule over the land of the United Kingdom. Now, there is no treaty, I think, in the world between two nations where one court of one nation gets to be the final arbiter of, debates and disputes in a treaty. It is absurd. And the ECJ is a very biased political court. This is not an independent body. It is absolutely driven by ever closer union. So it is not a court to be trusted to have any say over the United Kingdom. I wish the ERG would speak up about it. I don't trust the Rishi Hunt invertebrates that are in Westminster at the moment with negotiating with the EU at all. I don't think it's political for Boris. I think he's doing fine and dandy, earning loads of money during doing speeches. I do think he is concerned about the union. I know this was his deal, but remember at the time when he pushed this over the line, we nearly lost Brexit. This was the only deal that was going to get us over the line, and I believe Boris believed he could revisit the Northern Ireland Protocol and fix it once he was in power. But of course, Cakegate happened, he was ousted, and the Northern Ireland Protocol got put on hold by the Rishi Hunt blob. So I do think there is something afoot, and it's very concerning that Rishi is in negotiations in the EU, with the EU, where already the Vice President of the EU Commission is apparently boasting that the ECJ will have a role in Northern Ireland already. So it doesn't bode well.
Well, yeah, and look, Peter, Belinda makes a good point. I mean, that bill was there to protect us from, people who want to take over and actually overrule part of our own sovereign territory. What would you say to that?
Well, I wouldn't use words like takeover at all. It just doesn't apply. Secondly, I think there are...
OK, override our judicial process.
Yes, and it was Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister, who rubber-stamped elements of this agreement is now campaigning against, just like it was Boris Johnson who led the campaign for Brexit, elements of which he's now campaigning against. The idea that Boris Johnson is some innocent bystander coming in to save the day, when in fact he is, to his fingertips, at the root of several of these problems, is just a nonsense. I'd also go to this other point about treaties between countries and international courts. I think if you look around, there are actually a few precedents of where there is arbitration on an international basis. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think the Court of Arbitration for Sport is one of them. And the ECJ is there, the European Court of Justice is there to uphold the rule of law. It's not there to give party political comment.
Belinda's shaking her head. Belinda.
That's just not true. The ECJ is a biased court. I did my dissertation in the ECJ rulings. I know full well the amount of cases that it decided upon pushing integration and further interference in domestic law, the Chen case in Ireland, please look it up. It's a horrific abuse of power. And the idea that this biased court has a say over United Kingdom territory is unacceptable. And I think it will destroy the Conservative brand completely if Rishi oversees siphoning off part of UK territory to have to submit to EU law without any representation.
What's
the
your
EU
alternative, Belinda?
couldn't give a flying flamingo about peace in Northern Ireland, and this was proved
What's your
when
alternative?
Ursula von der Leyen in 2021 threatened to slap a hard border
What's your
right in
alternative?
between the Republic
Belinda,
of Ireland and Northern Ireland
Belinda,
over
Peter-
COVID vaccine imports, and she only retracted
We
it
remember that,
after
yeah.
What's your
worldwide
alternative?
condemnation.
Suggest something.
Peter's asking you, what's the alternative, Belinda? He said, suggest something. What could they do instead?
Oh, I tell you what, why don't we follow the EU's own advisor, Lars Carlson? He wrote a 47-page report about a smart border explaining exactly how it would work. This was the EU's own advisor. He presented it to the EU during the Brexit crisis years, and the EU dismissed it out of hand completely. They have no political will or goodwill when it comes to Northern Ireland. They were given alternatives. They dismiss it because they want a hold over the UK. They want to beat us with their border issues like a stick. This is a really got a dark force element to it. And you act as if the EU is like a saint and Boris is like a demon. Unfortunately, I have to say, the EU does not have good intentions when it comes to the Northern Ireland border.
Final word to you, Peter.
So it's not my role to say who's a saint, who's a sinner, but Belinda's suggestion...
Not seducing.
suggestion, solution,
so.
has been rejected by 4 Conservative Prime Ministers in succession and governments of left, centre and right across Europe. So there seems to be a consensus that it's unworkable.